Good day, everyone. So, if you're watching this is our last subtopic para sa ato ang Chapter 1, the Introduction to Special and Inclusive Education. So, I'll be sharing to you my screen this time. Okay. So on the last videos that you have watched already, we have already introduced to you all about the understanding diversity. And the second one was all about the basic concepts related to special and inclusive education. So right now, we are here for the historical, philosophical, theoretical, and legal foundations of special and inclusive education. Now, this chapter will provide us an overview on the historical, philosophical, theoretical, and legal foundations of special and inclusive education. It is very important because by having a perspective as to the ideas that underpin the special and inclusive education, all the events that led sa mga current state and legislations upholding the rights of the learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talents, kamo na mga student teachers will have or will gain a better understanding and appreciation of special and inclusive education. With all this background, with all these concepts that you will receive right now, so it will be easier for you to understand these two education systems that are so intertwined that it would be very difficult to discuss without mentioning the other one. Okay? So expect that in this discussion, we will look at the major developments in the history of special and inclusive education, either in the local or in the global settings. So as we do so, we will also tackle how the perspectives and views about learners na naay mga disabilities, learners with giftedness, learners with talents, had changed through the time. And along with these changes, how are the ways of addressing their needs are also developed. So our objective or intended outcome na may tabo at the end of this video is for you to draw the implications of historical, philosophical, theoretical, and legal foundations of special and inclusive education. So we will start now going back just a on overview of the previous topic. We have already discussed that special education, in which the unique needs and abilities of learners are considered by designing specialized instructions. Whereas ang inclusive education, it is in which the educational system caters all the learners with diverse needs, abilities, characteristics that are considered relatively new. So, nevertheless, its roots can be traced back on how people view and will respond to individuals whose conditions and needs are different sa mga majority na mga katauhan. So, this includes those with disabilities and who are marginalized by the society. Pag mo yun marginalized, kanang naadjud sila mga kumbaga pipila or they are already known by these categories na mga people. Now, the following slide that I'm going to let you see is a timeline, no? It's a timeline diagram so that we will see the major developments of special and inclusive education. We start with here in the era of extermination. Era of extermination. So what happened during this era? So in this era, during the Greek and the Roman era, people held such negative views about disability that it was regarded as a punishment from God. Something signifies being bad or evil. So you can just imagine how people treat people with disabilities during their time. Kay ini na time medyo kuan jud ang military na environment. So meaning ang mga individuals na may mga disability, they were labeled that time as defectives or may mga depekto sa ilang mga kaugalingon. And don't you know, ang pinaka harsh in a time is since they are considering people with disabilities as defects sa society, they want to eliminate every single disabled person during the time. So it was not surprising na even ang mga papa for that in that case, ang mga father or ang mga parents mismo, kung nakaanak sila ng may disability, they have the right that time to terminate or to kill their children or to abandon their children. So in ana ang regard during the era of extermination. And you see, there was an obvious discrimination na treatment upon that time. So recalling on the Christian era, na-mention po to during the time since the basis, if you're familiar with the Old Testament, di ba? Man is supposed to be, to supposedly created by God in his own image. Oh? And so, for them, the people during the era of extermination, they interpreted the word of God by assuming that to be disabled, to be somewhat a person who has less capability or have an obvious na incapacity, they are viewed to be impure. Again, let me clarify. This is how the way they interpret the Bible, but obviously it's not the main. It's not the point of the Lord, no. Pero during the era of extermination, they interpret it the way they wanted because they want to justify that it's okay to kill people that time. So, meaning, ang mga disabled person during the era of extermination were denied to some rights. Example, ano may mga rights? They were even, tawag doon, kanang, they were not allowed to enter a sacred place. Oh? For example, a place na a temple. Okay? So they're just going to stay far away from the place because people are abandoning them or resisting their presence. No? So muna yung nakuan nato din na. Pero later, 'di ba, kung idyo makuan, that perspective from the Old Testament has changed. No, during the New Testament, during the time of Jesus, being helpful to persons with disability. Can you still recall? Oh, di ba? Jesus healed blind people. Jesus healed mga persons na dili or mga crippled men. Di ba? So, isa sa nagpakita sad na makita gid nato na ang time sa era of extermination was just an interpretation of men trying to justify na it's okay to excommunicate or it's okay to not allow other people, especially disabled persons, to be part of the society. Pero during the Bible times, Jesus himself are was welcoming to people with disabilities. He even healed them. He even associate himself to these people, right? So from viewing disability, let's go back in here in the era of extermination. Ang ilagay jud panglantaw ra no, sa disability, it's a sign of evil. So meaning impure ka. That's how they interpret it. So people's perspective change to viewing persons with disability as needing help. So that's the era of extermination. They see disabilities as a sign of being bad or evil or being impure. Now let's move forward to the era of ridicule. So after the era of extermination, the era of ridicule is during the time of was during the time on the Middle Ages. So people with disability were treated with ridicule, in which they were used as servants or fools. They were used as clowns. They were mocked for their deformities and behavior, or may even be ordered to be put to death. Actually, kung imo lang to, no, wala siya kalahian. I mean, gamay ra ang iyang kalahian sa extermination na era. It's just that during the era of ridicule, they really make the people now with disabilities as slaves, as a form or for entertainment only. And they have also the right, or they have also the authority during that time to put these people to death. Can you just imagine people during that time na like blind people, crippled men, deaf mute, what else? And difficult to communicate, to hearing. You see, that's how they laugh that time. They will just make these people a a an entertainment for them. No, they're making them fools. So, kung ato lang taon, no, bagay, gamay ra kayong difference sa era of extermination and era of ridicule. Then, let's have the era of asylum. What's in here? So, during the Renaissance period, the Catholic Church began accepting persons with disabilities as wards of states. This was the start of humane treatment. They were taken care for, albeit in isolation, yet considered as uneducable. So, in here, diri na sad nagsugod sa Renaissance period na hatagan ng isolated place and mga people with disabilities. They will be put into asylums and terms, no? That's why it's called era of asylum. Asylum is kung sa kanyan mga mental hospital, sa treatment houses. So, diri na nag-start, no, na nakita nila na there is really a need for help. However, nagyapon siya disadvantage. Why? Because they're considered as uneducated, or they are considered as dili sila matudluan kana na mga tao. I mean, kung ato lang tawon, murag, they still look at them as hopeless unless they will be treated or they can recover from their illnesses or from their disabilities. So that's how these three eras, no, the major eras during that time see or view people with disabilities. Era of extermination sees it as bad or evil. Era of ridicule sees them as someone who deserves to be just servant or fool or just an entertainment or even to be mocked. And the era of asylum is the start of giving them humane treatment, be isolated in a place where they can be taken care of. However, they are uneducated and uneducable, meaning dili sila matudloan unless makarecover sila sa iyaang condition. Okay? So remember this three eras on how they view the people with disabilities. So, to reinforce equal treatment among all humans, one should have the right to education, regardless of his or her disability. That's how we want, or that's the ideal, right? That is what we wanted, that there will be equal treatment. That is what the inclusive education is trying to imply to us every single day, or every single um, opportunity na mapahibayo ang sa katauhan, that there is inclusion already. This led some individuals to devise ways to deliver education to those with disabilities, and this started the development of special and inclusive education. So this is already the beginning. No, na kung nato lang tawon, sa kahinagitan sa paglantaw lang as an evil. So naga-progress, and kuan. Siguro, kung diyan sa kita dyan ng mga time, dugayan kita. Pero tungod kay we're just looking on the history, we might think na dali ra nahitabo, no? Anyway, let's move forward. So the following here are this is a timeline on the perspectives on educability in the early beginnings of special education. So, in the year 1578, okay, um, in the year 1578, there was this Pedro Ponce de Leon, who were one of the key persons na nag-educate, no, sa mga deaf children. Mga deaf children gani, ganang dili makadungog, no? Dili na nagsugod na nagjaon na ang mga ingana na mga extension of services, right? And we also have in the year 1960, si Abbe Charles Michel. So he put up an institute for the deaf. So it's already a school, it's already a kuana for the deaf. And we also have in the year 1892, Louis Braille. Louis Braille invented the Braille script to allow the blind to read. I don't know if you're familiar with the Braille, pero amo John and John Murag, it's just something na a surface na itouch sa mga blind, and there are murag embedded na mga kuan kanang indication kung unsa to siya, then the blind people can read already the words or the phrase or the letters that gina-imply. Hmm? Okay, so let's take a look. Maybe this one is medyo taas-taas siya because again, we want to appreciate the early history of special and inclusive education. We want to recall how it started and um how it develops through time. Okay. So please be considerate as to how we are going to pinpoint mga major developments on the history of special and inclusive education. In the mid 1700s, there was this Joseph Ferrer who showed interest in a group of individuals called deaf mutes. No? Deaf mutes. He during this time, sa mid 1700s, these deaf mutes were generally believed to be unteachable. Kay syempre, dili sila kadungog, at the same time isa sila ka istorya. So during that time, for people, it's very possible for them to communicate to this kind of disabilities. So here comes Joseph Ferrer. Using simple sign language and a machine, he invented, no? And he systematically taught them to do simple na mga arithmetic calculations. So this was the start, no, of an attempt na demonstrate din niya na how these individuals can be taught through a special education. So during that time, Joseph Ferrer was very proud na iya jud natudloan ang mga deaf mutes. So for him, it's not impossible to teach these people. And also, with the same age, no, in the mid 1700s, there was also a person named John Mark Itard. He was known for his work on intellectual disability. So if Joseph Ferrer was on the deaf mute, so we have also John Mark Etard, who's known for intellectual disability. So there was this case he is well known for about Victor. He is a wild boy of Aberon, a child who reportedly wandering naked in the woods and raised by animals. So kadto na bata si Victor, iya ang gimanage to teach, no? Ang iyang gisugod is tudluan si dyan ng mga common objects, mga letters, alphabets, and unsay meaning sa kato ng mga words. So by that, natudluan pud niya. Even atong bata na aton una, naglakaw-lakaw ra ni kadto ra sa woods, raised by the animals, ha? Imagine si Victor, he was raised by the animals. Murag kato bitong salida na jungle, jungle ano? Di ba murag ana ang story, pero natudloan niya, nahatagan niya ng meaning. So for him also, he was also a testament na we can actually teach these people. Okay? So that happened during the mid 1700s. Now, let's move forward to early 1800s. So, in the 1800s, special education programs in the United States started to develop. Okay, dili na nagsugod na in the US, it's already happening, the SPED programs. And here comes, we have Samuel Greeley Ho, known for his work with blind individuals at the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston. So dito, while ang iyang partner si Thomas Gallaudet nag-put up ng school para sa mga deaf, si Japut nagtukod po siya para sa mga blind individuals. And then, we also have and also take note that it was happening, I mean it was happened on, or it happened in 1800s, and during 1829 na-invent na ang braille para sa mga buta, di ba? Oo, so muna na time. And with the same timeline, during the 1800s, we also have Edward Seguin. So actually, si Edward Seguin, he was a student of Etard, si John Mark. And the same sa iyang teacher, he also focused on teaching the intellectual disability. Okay? So moving forward, let's have the early 20th century. So what happened in the earliest 20th century? So we have here Maria Montessori. So familiar ba sa iyo ang Montessori na kuan, di ba? Maria Montessori, she developed techniques and materials para sa mga intellectual, sa mga children with or people with intellectual disabilities. And very useful kaayo ang iyang mga techniques during that time. And despite the advances of the SPED, institution for SPED became the dumping ground for unwanted individuals. Medyo ang downfall lang ini na time, kaya di ba nag-start na good 1800s, nag-start na gud pag na medyo nailhan na ang SPED classes or SPED program. However, katong syempre nahamok sa ang population, yun nga, yung mga cases na may mga anak na mga may disability. So para sa ila, dito sa nila ginabutang rakan, no? But kana murag gina-treat ra kanila na murag it's a house or it's a room para kuanan kanang butangan ng mga tao na pananto nila is dili na mapuslanon. So that happened during the early 20th century. So let's have the 1920s to 1940s. We're just summarizing everything about this because if we go pinpoint to pinpoint every event, abtantag siyam-siyam, no? So we'll just have few of this. We're just trying to have put brackets para mas dali na to si Jama contain. Um, During the 1920s, we're already here, to 1940s, Harry Goddard published a famous study about a family of mentally retarded that reinforced negative attitudes toward individuals with special needs. Actually, katon na time, no, na nagkuan siya, ini magud na famous study na iyang gikuan ni Henry Goddard. It's about a man na ama siya sa mga illegitimate niya na mga children. O niya, ang iyang mga anak nahimosad na mga retarded. And hantod na, yeah, it's really an effect, no, kumbaga yung anak. And the study was highly criticized kay murag gina-imply daw na kuan kanang na ay negative view na sa mga individuals na naay mga special needs. And also, we also have the Alfred Strauss and Heinz Werner. So during the 1920s to 1930s actually, so John Bamngam sa range siya until 1940s, ang social and economic hardships took away much of the interest sa mga individuals na dyan mga handicaps. However, pag-abot sa 1940s, Alfred Strauss and Heinz Werner became instrumental sa programa ng special education, especially in the field of learning disabilities. Kay diri na nagsugod ang research on neurological basis of learning disabilities. Pagmulong gani kita na involved na ang neurological na basis, meaning gina-study na gadyudaan ang brain functioning, no? Ang mechanisms. So unlike sa to natong mga previous nato na isgutan, labi naton sa era of extermination, era of asylum, ridicule, katubito siya, di ba, they've seen people with disabilities as something na gina-discriminate, no, without basis, without firm basis. Pero diri, they're considering unsa day nagakahitabo sa brain. Kay usually, diri gajud since this is the master control center of all human activities, brain is very an essential na part sa or factor nga no ana ang behavior sa kadto na mga bata na ay mga learning disabilities. Okay, let's have 1950s to 1970s. During this time, we have a Head Start program, which promoted early intervention for children who were or at risk of becoming handicapped. Okay? So, syempre, diyan yung mga dili especially dyan, kung handicap ka na bitong dili na able, makapanaw, makalihok, iana. So, they are doing something mga early intervention para sa mga at risk sa becoming of handicapped. And we also have Samuel Kirk who coined the term learning disabilities. So si Ja ang hinungdan na dyan ay term na learning disabilities. Na and we also have the last here, we have from 1970s and beyond. This is the start where the SPED, no, has been recognized as a formal and identifiable profession. So there are already special educators who are specializing. Diri na nagsugod, no, para to really extend help or extend extra efforts to give assistance to these children. And diri na sa nag-start ang mga mga legislation regarding special education. Longitag legislation, mga concerning na dyan sa laws, no? Mga policies sa government that caters the rights of the special education. Hey, so just take a look and see how it develops from mid 1700s and beyond, no? So, kung natin makita, there have much change in how this ability was viewed over the last century, no, during the 1900s. And the biological perspective has gained emphasis, leading to the medical model, suggesting institutional care to be given to individuals with disability. Diba? Sa ato ang previous na topic, we have talked about the medical model. I hope you can still recall on that. And at the end of the Second World War, the special education system was created and organized in parallel to regular education. So that's amo sa John, usually no, makita ninyo ang mga major developments na hitabo ga after the Second World War. So there, of course, we have a classic view of what SPED should be, no? And dili man ikayan that there was tawag doon, mga advantage or disadvantages. And I want you to see, no, what are these things that I'm talking. This is somehow a transition from special to inclusion. For the advantage, maybe let's start in here. Okay, I just wanna para may comparison. So in the advantage, special education are specially designed instruction along with special settings. So we learned that we call that as segregation because we separate the persons with disabilities from the persons without disabilities. However, the disadvantage of separating them is that this also reinforces rather na they are really disabled. It magnifies their disability because of the segregation. Now, for advantage, of course, because there is a need, since there are children with special uh, needs, now there should be special teachers. There should be specialists, and we call that in general as therapists that will help the children. However, it makes also a disadvantage because since we know that they are treated with a special utmost treatment, so less is also expected about them. We don't give much of the responsibilities. Kay, we have that kana, siguro, ang disadvantage is we set a standard below na kung unsay kaya sa mga normal or ordinary people. So that's the disadvantage, sad. And for another advantage is the special ratio. So low student to teacher ratio. This is very good for the sake sa teacher, no? Kay he or she will just be monitoring few children in the classroom. Or better, one-on-one. So nandiyan siya direct access or direct implementation of the lessons that he or she wanted to give sa iyang mga estudyante. However, this also signifies a disadvantage of segregating them from the community. They will not be exposed to the community since they are special. They should be treated in the SPED class. So they will be separated or segregated from the community. Since it's a special education, it also requires special methods or tools such as doing sign language, the use of braille, facilities like wheelchair or mga other tools to assist these special children. And also, same along with the special methods, there should be a special program and goals wherein there should be integration to society. However, this also lead to a disadvantage, another disadvantage that since they are exclusively designed, specially designed classroom, so it will also provide them less chance to interact with other children of their age. So, I hope na sa ato ang simple na paghatag ng advantage o disadvantage sa kanina mga butanga, nakita ninyo na is there really a need to implement pa inclusion because of this reality na nakahitabo sa special education system. Okay? Now, alongside no sa ini na mga terms na gusto nato take over or ato ipa-kuan sa inyo according to World Health Organization or the WHO during 1996, ako lang gusto ipasabot sa inyo ini na mga terms in impairment, disability, handicap. I hope you're familiar with these words. These are interchangeably used to call persons with special needs. They have impairment, they have disability, they are handicapped. Now, let's try to define them because they have a unique way of how do we say this? Just as a unique jud na explanation in this every term. So when we talk about impairment, it is any loss or abnormality of psychological, physiological, or anatomical structure, organ, or function na ay nawaya, na ay abnormality, again, sa iyang psychological, physiological, anatomical structure or organ or function. So that is impairment. Pag mulong kitag disability, this defines as any restriction or lack that results sa impairment katong nawala na or na abnormal na psychological condition or physiological. So nahimo ini na tawag na dahil siya na disability because it's giving them the lack of ability to perform an activity wherein in the manner of within the range considered normal for a human being. Kaya naman sila impairment, it causes disability in their part to do things in a normal way. And in handicap, this is already turned as a disadvantage. Ang disadvantage for a given individual, limiting them to fulfill or preventing them to fulfill their role as a normal person. So, to give you more emphasis or to give you a clear picture about how we are going to use this distinctively, not interchangeably, but distinctively, let's have this illustration using the differences of impairment, disability, and handicap. Okay. We're familiar lang ni na illustration, no? Just like itong medical model and social model from the previous subtopic. But let's use this illustration again. A person who lost a leg due to an accident. A person's inability to walk and a person's facing disadvantages that prevent him or her to perform a normal role in life such as not being able to climb stairs anymore. Si ba naglaong kita, balikon ko. So, ini na condition, person losing a leg or who have lost a leg due to an accident, that is impairment. Okay? That is what we talk about impairment. And the inability to walk of that person is describing the disability already. And when will when will be the time that we will be calling the person handicapped? It is when the person faces the disadvantages preventing him or her to perform a normal role in life, such as not being able to climb the stairs anymore. So that is handicap. All right? Impairment, disability, and handicap in one picture. Another, the person's brain in the person's brains kanya in the picture, the person's brain's inability to decode words to be able to read. The brain cannot correctly associate the sounds with the letter symbols. So, as I've said sa meaning ganina sa impairment, it's not just about losing. It's about the abnormality sa ija functioning, physiological and anatomical functioning or physiological functioning. So this time, in this sample, it has already the inability of the brain to decode the words. So dili siya kabasa. That leads the child or the person na dili na niya mabasa. Kay na ay mga functioning sa iya brain na nag na ay mga abnormalities sa iyang functioning. Okay? So that is what we call impairment. And now, here's the thing. What makes him disabled is that he has already an inability to read the words in the book or from the book or whatever mga literature or readings na iya ang basahon. Oh, he has already the inability to read it. That is disability. And we will call it as a handicap, no, kung the person may not be able to complete the reading requirements in class and may fail. So actually, what we are having here in this picture is a child who has a learning disability, specifically dyslexia, no? So if you're not familiar with that, you can search unsa ang dyslexia. Or maybe familiar na sa iman who have watched some films na ang main character kay na ay sakit na dyslexia. Okay, so I hope na klaro na to ang kalahian, no? In one picture, the impairment, disability, and handicap. Okay, so moving forward from segregation, this is very traditional, right? Ang segregation, a traditional segregation. Education of LSEN or learners with special educational needs has moved already to inclusion. Nga naman, no? Nakita man nato, di ba, na gikan sa pagiging exclusive, isolated, or segregated. So, it has already making moves padulong sa inclusion, padulong sa accessibility to all learners. And this was due because of these three kinds of pressures na ito enumerate. So first, na pressure nganong ang segregation or the traditional way of educating has already moving forward to inclusion. First, ethics and moral pressure. Again, ethics and moral pressures, which was reinforced by ang mga reinforcers here in the second table. Second column. Unsa man ang hinungdan na kanina na kuan man na pressure sa association, sa laws, sa increased awareness, especially, for example, on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. So, with the legislative concerns, diri napukaw ang ethics and moral pressure na dapat ang mga bata or ang mga learners na o yung mga special educational needs, they should be part on the equal access sa education system. Ikadua is the conceptual pressure. So medyo hamok-hamok ang reinforcers sa kaning ikaduha na primary pressure. So asagikan ang mga reinforcers in this pressure. It comes for a need to treat individuals as normally as possible. We want to normalize everything, especially in their condition. No? Educate these children with disabilities alongside those who do not have or the least restrictive environment or the LRE. That's what I'm talking about. Least from the previous chapter, that least is restrictive environment is not a place. It's a principle of educating children to give same classroom to same students. Okay? Equal access. Now, engaging them with others or social validation. Kaya kana ang kulang sa traditional na approach. They have been segregated from the community. So wala sila engagement sa mga normal or ordinary na mga students. And allow them to adopt to increase participation and success. This is, in general, it's called as principles of adaptation. So they're also human beings that needs adjustments, needs adaptation. So why not give that to them as an opportunity? So if they are put into an inclusive classroom, they will have an increase engagement sa learning. And lastly, allow them to integrate physically, socially, and pedagogically. So these are what we call the mainstreaming, integration, and inclusion. But we know, di ba, what is the best system that is inclusion or inclusive education. So that is, those are the reinforcers in this kind of pressure, the conceptual pressure. Lastly is the economic pressure. So what is the main reinforcer for the economic pressure? Leading na ang mga learners with special education needs should be moved sa inclusive education to bring support services to the child rather than the child to the support service. Again, to bring support services to the child rather than the child to the support services. No? So dapat ang bata ang silbihan, no? Dili kay ang bata pa ang adjust sa services. So it's the services that should um give the help sa bata, no? It's the same thing na ato ang ginalantaw gajud no na we want to provide the maximum na quality of education in fairness to all. So these are the three kinds of pressures, okay, na nag-lead again to move it into inclusion. So the following slides, we will be talking on the kanang tawag dyan, mga local concerns or mga local events leading us in the development, in the practice of inclusive education in the Philippines. So these are noteworthy na mga milestones na we want tagpakita na we are really attempting as a nation. We are attempting to provide equal access to education for all the learners. So the following slides will give us a table just to give us a timeline of these developments. In 1907, the Insular School for the Deaf and Blind was established. 1960, programs for the gifted were developed, okay, gifted children. 1977, position for Undersecretary for Education and Culture for Non-Formal Education was created. Okay. I guess I don't need to read this one by one. No? Pero if you see there, naba mo yung mga familiar na mga balaod na nakita diha or mga policies. So, siguro, familiar sa inyo ang Philippine Constitution. Okay? So, especially in this article. Napod din na ang World Declaration on Education for All. Naapod tay Magna Carta for the Disabled Persons, RA 7277. You can go check on this online if you want to make sure or if you want to read the guidelines of this Republic Acts. Also, we have 7610, the Special Protection Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act. The Salamanca Statement on the Education of Children with Disabilities. This, the four pillars of learning. Okay, learning the treasure within from this is the UNESCO, no, for the 21st century. Okay, so let's have the next one. RAA 371, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. Maybe you'll be wondering, ano man apil man indigenous, di ba? From the previous topic that I have discussed, in the category of the Philippine inclusive education, included ang mga IPs or mga indigenous people sa cover sa inclusive education. Okay, I'll go over with this. So, yeah, okay. Just at the Executive Order T56, renaming the Bureau of Non-Formal Education to Bureau of Alternative Learning System. What else? Okay. UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This happened 2006. And the IFA, or the Education for All. This is for the 2015 National Action Plan. And then we have the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Magna Carta, the amendment for Magna Carta for disabled persons in RA 9442. Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program, 4P. So this is what I'm trying to say, that it's not just about literally education like classroom, higher education, basic education. It's about opportunities, inclusion or inclusive opportunities for all. Maybe in the industries, maybe in the consumer, as citizen in general, no? Kaning 4Ps, this is also one of the key developments that we are practicing inclusion in the Philippines. DepEd Order 72, Series of 2009, and Inclusive Education as Strategy for Increasing Participation Rate of the Children. DepEd Order 74, Series of 2009, Institutionalizing Mother Tongue-Based Multilingual Education. We also have Magna Carta of Women, diba? Empowerment for Women. That's also a form of inclusion. During 2010, there is what we call mainstreaming and institutionalization on madrasa education program by transferring its developed components to the Bureau of Elementary Education and regional division offices. Okay, so next, DepEd Order 62, Series of 2011 on adopting the National Indigenous Peoples Education Policy Framework. Okay, creating of Indigenous Peoples Education Office. The Kinder Education Act, yes, that's part 2012. Highlights also during the 2012, is the implementing guidelines on the revised school-based management framework or the assessment process and tool or the APAT. Okay, we also have Enhanced Basic Education Act during the year of 2013. Then Domestic Workers Act or Batas Kasambahay. Kabantay ka mo ito sa 2013 that need na gajud sad na i-kuan sa SSS ang mga kasambahay kanano dapat na jud sila rights to gain no sa ilang mga employer. 2016. So we're moving forward. Senate Bill 1298 or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act or the IDEA or IDEA. With the same year, we also have pushed through a Senate Bill 996 on inclusive education for children and youth with special needs act. Same year, an act expanding the benefits and privileges of the persons with disabilities. Agas diri ang kadton mga discounts, no, mas kuan na gud ang discounts for PWDs. Labi na sila mga paliton or kaya. Then at the year 2017, DepEd Order 42 series of 2017 or the PPST wherein tagpakita sa dito na mao na ni teachers should be the primary implementers of inclusive education. Same year, CHED Memo 74 to 77, series of 2017 policies, standards, and guidelines for Bachelor of Elementary Education, for Bachelor of Secondary Education, for Bachelor of Early Childhood Education, and Bachelor of Special Needs Education, all with a required professional education course of Foundation of Special and Inclusive Education, and including your program. O, diba? Na mo yung subject like this, the Foundation of Special Inclusive Education, since we are really practicing now the inclusive education in the nation, right? So, ay, may nabagan, feel na ko nalaghang sa dyan. Okay, anyway. So, 2019, or the mandatory PhilHealth coverage for all PWDs. Okay? And indicating also the series of 2019, the Ed Order 21 series of 2019 on the policy guidelines on the K-12 basic education program. And palagidan ko pa may nalaghang siya. So, the same 2017 year, na-added to ang Senate Bill 1414 or the Bill of the Inclusive Education for Children and Youth with Special Needs. Okay? Okay, so before I go to, I don't know if ma-find ba ni Janie ang video. Siguro ako I don't know. Feeling ako dili ni madungog medyo. No, dili sa jama ko. Anyway, so I'll just go put the link of the video aton kay Katoning na makita ni just sa ang kumbaga ang story sa katon isa ka primary concern sad about having a disability. So ato to i-try pagkuan. I forgot to put it or insert na dapat makadiretso kita sa ato na link. Okay, so I'll go stop sharing first. Okay, I'll just provide the link sa katong video sa katong kay Katoning so that you will have extra reflection about our topic for this video. Thank you for watching and please study hard. God bless.